The postpartum period, for me, seems to be the most important piece to your sensuality and maintaining that. I noticed in my private practice with couples that many of them no longer had an intimate life. They no longer shared sexuality. And I was wondering what's going on. I'm like, there's an epidemic that no one is talking about in our culture, where many couples have no sex life at all. I'm talking not even touching under the covers with their feet, or not even kissing each other or hugging. What's going on? And when I started researching about birth, I realized that a lot of them had said to me, it started after we had children. And the more and more that I looked into it, there was an aha that happened for me of, well, there's a period of time where a woman is healing. And it's during that period that I think it's important for many couples to have a plan when it comes to sexuality. And by plan, I mean, how are you going to reintegrate your sex lives? You have a baby suddenly. She's breastfeeding maybe. She may have been through a traumatic birth experience. Actually, 95% of births in America are considered traumatic. So figuring out a way, or having some sort of way that you're going to plan on reintegrating your love lives after the birth of the child is very important. And developing no pressure. So this is the period, again, where men are feeling very much of an alive sex drive and women are feeling like, no way. Not for every woman, but the majority of women have all these hormones that are happening which bonds them with the baby. So they have also a drop in estrogen after the baby is born, and all of these changes happening in their body that may make them feel not sexy, that may make them feel like they don't want to be touched by anybody else because they have an infant all day that they're caring for. And then the man feels as if he's alienated, he's not getting the nurturing he needs. And so there's something that happens where it gets difficult for couples to really be able to reintegrate. As soon as the partners feel pressure, then neither people are really happy, especially when he's been pressuring her, and then that creates resentment in the relationship, and then that resentment carries on for years. I've seen it 30 years after the birth of a child. She's still resenting him for feeling pressured, and it also doesn't really give off that sexy vibe if he's really in a needy place or she's really in a needy place, and they're having trouble finding where everything can meet, where he's really speaking his needs and she's really speaking her needs. And you can find a place where you either create something called synergy, which is where you agree, or shift, where one of you shifts where your needs are. So for example, perhaps he really needs to feel nurtured and she really needs time alone. So how can you create that? Maybe perhaps he takes the baby for a little while so she can go work out at the gym, feel really good in her body, and then she can come home from that place of feeling really good and then spend time nurturing him. So that would be a shift synergy situation. Or perhaps both of you find a time where you're like, okay, for these 2 months, we know that we're not going to have sex because you're in a healing process. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're instead going to do massage, or we're really going to nurture one another. We're going to lay in bed together for a while just cuddling with the baby, and that can be a really sweet bonding time that creates a platform for intimacy later on, as opposed to having sort of this headbutting or conflict of needs, and knowing that that's coming, knowing that you're going to have a time where you're healing, knowing that your body is going to need that, and to really, as a woman, give yourself permission to have that time, and as a partner to a woman who's just had a baby, to give her that, to gift her with that time of letting her heal and being gentle and being intimate, as opposed to rushing into intercourse too soon before her body is really ready, because that can actually cause some resentment and damage to not just her psychologically and emotionally, but also physically. You don't want to rush into that period too fast. Then there's the opposite spectrum, which is the couples who do plan on having an alive sex life afterwards. And what I've seen really work is this idea of keeping the intimacy and speaking to one another, communicating to one another about each other's needs. So he may really need nurturing, and she may translate that as him being needy and wanting sex from her all the time. And as soon as she feels pressured, that's where she will withdraw. And then he feels left out, so he's just going to go withdraw on the other end. But if you can really communicate and say, this is my need, this is my need, and to not have the expectation of entering into intercourse, because she's going to have a healing period, especially with C-section, with the stomach, this area being very tender, and vaginal birth if there's any tearing, that there's going to be a period, usually around 2 months, where women really need that time to heal. But that doesn't mean that you can't have intimacy or sharing or eye gazing or connection or cuddling or massage happening between the two of you. And it also doesn't mean for men that they can't do self-pleasuring, that you can't do mutual masturbation and some of those other things that may work that aren't necessarily intercourse. And then making it really fun when you do get to that time where you're feeling like, okay, I think we're ready to enter into intercourse, that it becomes sort of like your teenagers again. And you really take your time to play, to explore, to do a lot of foreplay, and like sex is out of bounds. And I've even heard women report that they feel like virgins all over again. So when they enter into that, it's like the first time that you're having sex again, that it just feels like there's this excitement, like they're teenagers or they're dating again. So finding things that you can do like that, where you are feeling that aliveness of the first time, or feeling that aliveness of excitement of entering into something that's new, because you do as a woman have a new body at this point, which also touches on body image. If you're not feeling sexy with your postpartum body, or finding ways to pamper yourself, finding ways to get massage or go get your hair done, or doing something that can really make you feel sexy during this time, having a special date night with your partner that really allows you to go into that, and discovering that and having that plan. All of those things are really, really important for that postpartum period.